There comes a time in each person's life when they realize that talent alone isn't enough. That dreams, no matter how vivid, won't bring themselves to life. That success, in any meaningful form, whether personal, financial, physical, or spiritual, is not handed out, it's earned. And the currency we pay with isn't luck or hope. It's discipline. Now I know. It's not a flashy word. It doesn't sound fun. But let me assure you, it's one of the greatest gifts you can ever give yourself. Because when you master self-discipline, you unlock something extraordinary. The ability to lead yourself, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what's going on around you. Discipline is how you trade intention for action. It's how you move from potential to progress. It's how you build a life, not from hype, but from quiet consistency. You don't need to be extreme. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to decide, truly decide, that your word to yourself means something. And from that moment on, everything begins to shift. In the pages that follow, we're not going to talk about gimmicks. We're going to talk about principles, timeless ideas that, when practiced with patience and purpose, will transform not only what you do, but who you become. This is the art of self-discipline. And like any art, it's practiced, refined, and eventually it becomes who you are. So let's begin. Not with force, not with fear, but with a quiet decision that today you will lead yourself. First, self-discipline is a skill, not a trait. Let me begin with a principle, a foundation. Self-discipline is not a gift from the gods. It's not etched into your DNA. It's not reserved for a handful of iron-willed individuals. No, my friend, it is a skill that you and I can learn. It's a decision and a process of training your mind, your hands, your habits, and yes, even your emotions to do what you said you would do. Now, self-discipline doesn't wait to see how you feel. It's not a creature of convenience. It's the bridge between the world you imagine and the world you live in, between your ambitions and your actual achievements. It's the engine that drives progress, the cornerstone of character, and the tool that makes vision real. You can have the most inspiring goal sheet pinned to your wall, color-coded and highlight. But without discipline, that's all it'll ever be. A dream on the wall. Self-discipline is the difference between setting the standard and actually living it. It's not enough to talk about your values. You must embody them. Let's be clear. This isn't about intensity. It's not about extreme schedules or superhero mornings. No, it's about consistency. Quiet, steady, repeatable action. Especially on the days you don't feel like showing up. Especially when no one is watching. Especially when your mind says, just this once, we can lower the bar. You see, discipline shows up when your feelings are nowhere to be found. When your emotions whisper excuses. But your standards, your internal code stands firm. Now, most people think they need motivation. But motivation, like the weather, comes and goes. It's seasonal. Discipline. That's the thing that sticks. It's what carries you through the dry seasons, the long nights, the dull days. It's how you take control of your life rather than handing the reins to your mood. Discipline doesn't ask, do I feel like it? It doesn't ask for permission. It moves. It completes. It finishes. If you want to build anything meaningful in this life, health, wealth, peace, purpose, you have to stop outsourcing your consistency to your emotions. You must build systems that don't wait for inspiration. Habits that run regardless of the weather. Standards that don't fluctuate with your feelings. Now let's talk about how you shape this muscle. It doesn't happen by chasing perfection. It comes by repetition. You shape it by building structure around it, by training your behavior to serve your vision rather than your impulse. Every small decision you honor, every quiet commitment you keep when no one is watching. That's the forge. That's where self-trust is built. And self-trust, my friend, is the foundation of belief Not belief in ideas, but belief in yourself. Because if you don't trust yourself, you'll hesitate. You'll second guess. But when you follow through on the small promises, again and again, something beautiful happens. Your confidence catches up. Not the loud kind, but the deep, quiet, unshakable kind. And here's where we begin to master the art. By learning to create systems, not by working harder, but by working smarter. We build systems that eliminate negotiation, that lead us through exhaustion, distraction, and pressure. There are 5 pillars we'll build together, each one a step, each one a sharpening stone. And as we move through them, you'll become the kind of person who doesn't wait for momentum. You create it. Who doesn't collapse in chaos, but walks through it with clarity? So where do we begin? We begin with your relationship to time. Time is the most honest currency you have. It doesn't lie. It tells you what you really value, not what you say you value, but what actually gets your attention. The disciplined treat time like treasure. They don't gamble with it. They don't waste it waiting for perfect moments. They schedule what matters. They own their days. Because if your calendar is reactive, your life will be too. If you spend your days answering dings and pings, you'll be busy, but never effective. That's the trap. Emotion without meaning. But discipline. Discipline starts when you stop negotiating with time. You realize this moment, right here, is not a rehearsal. There are no replays. And that realization forces you to live with precision, with alignment. Next, turning time into a strategic asset. You see, most people don't plan their time. They react to it. And that's a dangerous game. Because time doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if you meant well. Time responds to one thing only: execution. Disciplined people don't just set goals. They schedule goals. They don't leave success to chance. They write it into their calendars. It's not about having a task list, it's about assigning time to the things that matter most. When you block time, you move from theory to action. From I'll get around to it to I'm doing it at 9 a.m. That shift is everything. Let me give you a secret. Structure removes stress. A blocked schedule removes decision fatigue. Because the moment something is scheduled, it no longer asks, should I do this today? It becomes an instruction, not a negotiation. But most people, they don't create boundaries. They say yes to too much, and as a result, they say no to their future. They allow low-priority distractions to steal high-priority time. And every distraction is a little thief. It doesn't just take minutes, it takes momentum. Discipline is about saying no with strength. No to urgency that doesn't align. No to people who don't respect your time because they don't respect theirs. No to inputs that hijack your clarity. And every time you say no to what doesn't matter, you say yes to what does. That's how you protect your time, your energy, and your vision. This isn't just time management. It's time ownership. You stop blaming the day, the notifications, or the chaos. You start commanding your time like a leader commands their mission. Let your calendar reflect your character. If you look at your week and it doesn't match who you want to be, don't panic. Change one block, just one. One decision that's in alignment with your highest values. Because discipline doesn't mean a perfect life. It means a purposeful one. When you build structure that supports who you want to become, the pressure to rely on motivation disappears. You give your life a rhythm. And rhythm, my friend, is more powerful than bursts of hype. Next, resistance. Let's talk about something people misunderstand. Resistance, you know it well. It's that friction that shows up when you try to improve. That hesitation, that not now, that maybe later. Most folks treat resistance like an enemy. But let me reframe it. Resistance is a signal. It shows up at the threshold of transformation, right when you're close to leveling up. It shows up not because something's wrong, but because something's changing. See, your brain loves the familiar. It's built to protect survival, not expansion. So when you push into new habits, higher standards, deeper focus, resistance says, let's stay safe. But safe is not where the growth lives. Disciplined people don't wait for resistance to vanish. They expect it. They meet it. And here's the trick. They separate their feelings from their behavior. They act even when they don't feel like it. They lead themselves even when their mind says, you're not ready. They walk forward through fog. That's discipline. Let me give you a practice. When resistance is high, lower the barrier, make the action smaller, but non-negotiable. 10 minutes of writing, 1 difficult phone call, 5 minutes of exercise. Not because it's dramatic, but because it keeps the standard alive. Discipline dies in negotiation. It dies when you ask yourself, do I really have to today? No, you remove the question, you execute the habit. You train the muscle of movement. And the more you do, the stronger you become. Not just in motion, but in identity. Train yourself by choosing challenges on purpose. Do the hard things, not to suffer, but to strengthen. Because if you only grow when life forces you to, you'll always be on defense. But when you train yourself to seek friction, you start playing offense. That's leadership. That's growth by design. Next, breaking free from the motivation trap. Now, let me tell you something that might surprise you. Motivation is unreliable. Yes, it's nice. It's a bonus. But it is not a foundation. You see, motivation is emotional. It ebbs and flows. It's here one day, gone the next. It's like trying to build a house on a cloud. You need something sturdier. People ask, Jim, how do I stay motivated? And I tell them that's the wrong question. The better question is, how do I stay consistent? Because anyone can show up when the sun's shining. But real growth, that's tested on the days you don't feel like it. When the work feels dull. When the applause is gone. When your spark is missing. That's where discipline either holds or collapses. See, discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It asks, what did I say I would do? And then it expects you to follow through. Not because of how you feel, but because of who you are. Your habits must be rooted in identity, not mood. You want to stop starting over. Stop letting your emotions drive the wheel. You want to build lasting results. Build systems that move with or without your enthusiasm. It's time to stop relying on hype and start building patterns, routines, rituals that initiate your day, blocks of time that serve specific goals, triggers that put you into motion. Without needing a pep talk every morning, the disciplined build a culture inside themselves. One where follow through is expected, not debated. But most people, they live in waves. Big push, big stall. A burst of energy, then a season of trying again. They keep chasing new hacks, new strategies, new bursts of motivation, when the real issue is execution. The problem isn't their plan. It's that they never gave the plan a chance to mature. They broke the rhythm before the result could bloom. Let me say this clearly. There's nothing wrong with enjoying motivation. But if you lean on it like a crutch, you'll never walk the path of discipline. You must replace your dependency on feeling good with a devotion to doing good. You follow through not to feel impressive, but to stay in alignment. You follow through to strengthen identity. You follow through to become the kind of person who finishes what they start, even when no one's watching. That's real power. That's what separates temporary performers from lifelong builders. Next, turning discomfort into a training ground. Now, here's a lesson that separates the few who rise from the many who stall. Discomfort is not your enemy. It's your classroom. Most folks spend their whole life trying to avoid discomfort. They soften it, they delay it, they run from it. but the disciplined. The disciplined move through it. You see, discomfort is not a sign something's wrong. It's a signal you're on the edge of something better. It's proof you're stretching, reaching, evolving. Growth never knocks quietly. It shakes the walls. But let me offer you this perspective. Every time you do something difficult that aligns with your purpose, you're sending a signal to yourself. I finish what I start. That's identity. That's the making of a solid character. It doesn't have to be big or flashy. 5 more minutes of deep work. 1 more set at the gym. Finishing the project after your energy drops. The discipline isn't in how much. It's in not quitting. Discipline is a muscle, and the weight it lifts is discomfort. If you avoid that weight, you stay weak. But if you lift it daily, even in small doses, your capacity grows. Not just your strength to act, but your strength to endure and to carry pressure, to keep going when it gets hard. And let me tell you, it will get hard. Discipline doesn't remove the pressure. It gives you the tools to handle it. That's where the real freedom lies. You're no longer a slave to convenience. You don't collapse every time you hit a wall. You don't retreat just because the path got steep. But here's the truth. To live this way, you have to stop chasing comfort. You must stop expecting ease to be the sign you're on the right track. Because easy is not the goal. Alignment is. You may have heard me say before, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. And discipline is how you become better. Through repetition, through practice, through stretch. Now here's a powerful shift in thinking. Discomfort doesn't weaken discipline. It refines it. But for that to work, you have to engage discomfort on purpose. I'm not talking about suffering for suffering's sake. I'm talking about deliberate challenge, stretching your will daily. Whether it's cold showers, deep focus, a long run, a hard conversation, you lean into that space on purpose, not to punish yourself, but to remind yourself who's in charge. Because if you only grow when life forces you to, you're reacting. But if you choose challenge before it chooses you, you're leading. That's not cruelty. That's character development. And you don't have to go to war every day, but you do have to encounter some friction. A moment that says, this is uncomfortable. And you respond, yes, but I move forward anyway. And when you move forward anyway, you shorten the distance between who you are and who you want to be. You see, the only thing between those two versions of yourself is how you handle hard things. When pressure rises, do you retreat? Or do you recommit? Discipline is the act of declining the easy exit. And each time you do, your identity strengthens. Now here's something profound. Most people are only consistent when they're seen, when someone's watching, when there's applause, when someone's checking in. But the real test, can you keep the promise in silence? Can you stay consistent without an audience? Next, private discipline, public transformation. Now let's talk about the highest form of self-discipline. Not the kind you post online, not the kind that's measured by applause. I'm talking about the kind that happens in silence when no one's watching, and no one will ever know whether you followed through or not. But you still do. That, my friend, is mastery. Most people are only consistent when there's someone to impress, when there's an audience, when their effort is visible, when someone else is checking in. And that's fine in the beginning. Accountability is useful. But if your behavior depends on being watched, on being reminded, on being praised, then you'll always be at risk of falling apart the moment the spotlight fades. True discipline isn't loud. It isn't performative. It's quiet. It's built in early mornings and late nights and moments of decision where the only person who will ever know if you cut corners is you. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. But it is powerful. And it is permanent. You see, when your consistency comes from the outside, it's vulnerable. But when it comes from within, it becomes your identity. And once it becomes your identity, you no longer need external pressure. You have internal standards. You build a private scorecard. You don't need to be told what matters. You already know. You've already decided. And when you say, I will, you follow through. Not for a round of applause, not for a pat on the back, but because your word is worth something to you. It means something. It carries weight. That's the kind of discipline that reshapes who you are. You become someone who doesn't need a push. You move because you have direction. You act because you're committed. You lead because you've trained yourself to rise when no one else is looking. It's in those invisible hours that real transformation takes root. Not when you're on stage, not when you're celebrated, but when you're alone and it would be easy to skip and you don't. That's where you're forged. You don't announce your discipline. You live it. You don't seek approval. You seek alignment. And when you live that way, day after day, rep after rep, your confidence changes. You begin to carry something different. You walk steadier. You think clearer. You stop looking for validation because you're too focused on becoming. You stop proving and start embodying. Discipline, at its highest level, is an act of self-respect. When you say, I'm going to do this, and then you do it, especially when no one's watching. You build trust, you build belief. And every time you skip that promise, not because it's strategic, but because it's convenient, a little bit of that belief erodes. You don't lose it all at once. You lose it gradually in the compromises you make with yourself, in the small negotiations that chip away at your own integrity. Eventually, your word doesn't carry weight, not with others, but with you. And that's the root of doubt. Not that you're incapable, but that you've broken your own trust. The only way to rebuild it is to start small, quiet, consistent, uncelebrated. You do the thing when it's boring. You do the thing when it's inconvenient. You do it because it's what you said you would do. And what happens over time is miraculous. That private discipline turns into public transformation. You grow. You change. Your habits deepen. Your clarity sharpens. And by the time the world starts to notice, you've already put in the miles. You've already become. This kind of discipline doesn't require that you isolate. It simply means that you lead. You can still have support. You can still have mentors. But your foundation isn't their encouragement. It's your internal contract. Their support helps. But it doesn't fuel you. And when support fades, as it sometimes does, you don't fade with it. You continue. Because you've built your habits on principle, not praise. This is the kind of maturity that sets people apart. It's rare, it's steady, and it lasts. You don't build this level of discipline by accident. You build it in the small repetitions, in the end-of-day reflections, in the choice to review your week not based on applause or outcomes, but based on alignment. You ask yourself, did I move with purpose? Did I stay true to my process? Did I keep the promise? And when the answer is yes, even if no one else saw it, you sleep differently. You breathe easier. You walk stronger. Because you know that your confidence wasn't borrowed from someone else's approval. It was built by your own behavior. And confidence built that way doesn't fade. It gets stronger the longer you live it. That's the power of private discipline. That's where the transformation happens.